So Martha.
Yeah, you didn't even have to say her last name, right?
That's exactly right. How did it begin?
Well, probably 3.5 years ago, when I got an email from someone alleging to be Snoop. And it turned out it was him and his team, and we announced that about 3 years ago. And then they started doing their potluck show, and we got an introduction to her. And over a period of about 6 or 7 months of her coming to see what we do, we going to see her, making sure, you know, that it's all done the right way. We got to the place, the starting ramp is CBD and advising and animals, and we'll see where it goes after that.
What kind of audience do you expect or hope she delivers for you?
Well, I think it caused a whole bunch of people to say, I got to really look at this. And I mean, it's from, the young ones who think potluck's hilarious to the people getting her magazine saying, I really love her style. And what we really just wanted to have was an on-ramp conversation. And it has been huge.
So I just got a note from RBC's consumer staples analyst. They're holding a webinar on the cannabis effect, implications for beverage, alcohol, and tobacco. I mean, this is really touching so many different industries. Which one is on the forefront of working with you?
So I would say, you know, obviously we've got Constellation in, and we have in Canada some rules coming out that will allow us, we expect in Q4, to be able to make beverages and sell them as a product that's really scientifically driven. But we're running clinical trials, and I would hope in Q4 that we start to get an indication response against something like sleep. And so when you look at it, good science leads to great products, which turns into the reason people want them. And I shouldn't pick on Google, but Google's a perfect example of great science that, you know, once it works really well, if you put a name like Google on it, it's actually a great brand. But it wasn't a great brand, it's a great platform. And so what we're trying to do is the same with cannabis, which is make it so specifically amazing for each of its purposes, sleep, have a party, that when we put a brand on it and we say, would you like a Tweed and Tonic, you're going to be absolutely. What would you like this to sleep for your parents in the aged care home? You're going to say absolutely, and that brand will ring for you.
Although it still feels pretty speculative, and it still feels pretty early in terms of the science. And you talk to companies, we talk to companies like Coke and Pepsi, for instance, and they say there's not enough research done. We can't really get into that yet.
I agree with them, right? The research is being done, and if it has any of the responses against the indications, the outcomes, the effect, whether we could make a really good sports recovery drink, any of these things start to hit. And I think the even bigger guys are going to start to step up and say, I'm a big pharma, I can add a zero to what the other guys can. And so really it's our time to work.
Let me ask you about, people are looking at how legalization is testing out in California and Oregon. They see these inventory levels bloated. They see the tax base not coming in as expected. How do you explain that?
Well, I think probably your toughest market in the U.S. has got to be California. Like it's, you know, people were celebrating when it became a recreationally legalized, and my response was, I don't know anybody in California who wanted cannabis before that didn't get it. And so I think what you're going to have is the supply chain did tighten up when they tested a lot more. And what they're really looking for are the true medical outcomes, which will then get registered with, say, the FDA, and that you could actually say, here's what you need when you're in geriatric care. Here's what you need for migraines. But until we have that hit, you're kind of selling the same old. Speaking
of the FDA, do you think policy gets changed at all with Gottlieb's departure?
Well, I think the file the FDA needed is something a number of companies, including ours, have been thinking about and working on for CBD. But there's another way they get it handled, right? You're in New York State. About 3-4 weeks ago, New York State started to crack down on people selling CBD with no source that was legit, because they're going to govern it in New York State, which is why we're investing in New York State, because I think their intent is to be able to say, put the word CBD, but don't claim a medical outcome, but tell us the ingredients. That will be a big on-ramp for a big market, and each state's going to have to decide, are they going to step up, or are they going to wait for the FDA? And New York, I think, was clear, we're not waiting.
You mentioned the Constellation partnership. Obviously, that was huge for you, the investment that they made there. Where are you in terms of development and bringing drinks to market?
Yeah, so the science of how to make the drink was something we had been working on, and we think we've done a good job of. How should it taste? How bubbly should it be? Who's going to pay what for what format has been great with Constellation. So when you put those two things together, you can think about a great product in a really well thought out brand aiming at segments, and our goal is that is a live product in Q4 if the regulations permit it, which by all indications Canada's going to be doing that again, which is look north, see the petri dish, and then wonder where does it impact globally, and Q4 could be that window.
Is Martha going to have her actual name on a product, a SKU?
So where we started is to say she's an advisor, but you got to start somewhere. And I think the best way to look at it is if we execute competent delivery, show great things, she seems to know quite a lot about everything from baked goods to gardening. And so who knows, but I think she makes a great advisor, and that's a good on-ramp.
And you're not making any projections on how she might alter revenue growth or anything like that?
No, but what has happened is it highlights and makes more people aware this is legit. And I would say I've given a lot of tours of my facility. She's top 3 because her questions and consideration of everything from nutrients to how you create stuff was unbelievable. So I think she's going to be very influential with us.
Just a quick stock question here. Your stock is down 1%, which is tame because there's some crazy moves in this industry. It's up 94% over the past year. What do you tell investors about whether it's a stable investment?
I was hoping I would come on the show and you give me that answer. Really, this is an area filled with the potential of public policy change. Like, what happens if tomorrow state rights goes ahead and THC becomes a managed ingredient in each state in the US? Oh, it goes way up. Well, what happens if that takes 2 weeks? Well, maybe more people in Germany start getting medical. And so there's so many different gears torquing. You see volatility because this is a global public policy change which creates an ingredient that could be disruptive.